Ever feel like you're on an emotional roller coaster, but your brain's trying to, like, solve a logic puzzle at the same time?
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
what is going on up there? We're going to try to untangle those threads today and really dive deep into the difference between mental and emotional health,
Yeah.
because it can be a little confusing.
Right. And I think it's a bigger difference than people realize.
Yeah,
And just knowing the difference can make you way more effective at taking care of yourself.
for sure. To help us out today, we've got two great sources.
Okay.
We've got excerpts from Difference Between Mental and Emotional Health.
Right.
That's from Mindful Health Solutions. And we also have Emotional Wellness and Well-Being from Medical News today.
Okay.
So by the end of this deep dive,
Yeah.
you'll be able to tell the difference between these two, like, super important aspects of well-being, see how they're connected, and get some solid advice on how to improve both.
Right.
So where should we even begin?
Well, I think Mindful Health Solutions makes a really great point right off the bat.
Okay.
Mental health is about your overall psychological well-being.
Okay.
It's the big picture of how your mind is working,
Okay.
thinking, feeling, and behaving.
So it's like, are you thinking clearly? Are you making good decisions?
Right.
Handling all the curveballs that life throws at you?
Yeah, exactly. Now, emotional health, as Medical News Today puts it,
Okay.
is more about your ability to recognize, process, and manage your emotions,
Okay.
and not just the good ones.
Right, because let's be honest.
Yeah.
Nobody's happy all the time.
Nobody's happy all the time.
It's more about how you handle those tougher emotions without, like, completely falling apart.
That's the key. And that's really what emotional health is all about.
Yeah.
It's about resilience, healthy relationships,
Yeah.
having good coping strategies for stress. And one thing that Medical News Today emphasizes is acceptance,
Uh-huh.
accepting that you're going to have ups and downs.
Yeah.
That's a normal part of life.
For sure. For sure. Okay, so we've got mental health kind of being the thinking side of things.
Yeah.
Emotional health is more about how we feel and how we react.
Right.
But, I mean, they can't be totally separate, right?
They're not.
They must influence each other.
They absolutely do.
Yeah.
Mindful Health Solutions uses a really good analogy.
Okay.
It says, imagine your mental health is like the operating system on a computer.
Okay, yeah.
And your emotional health is kind of like the software that's running on it.
Oh, I like that.
So if your operating system is glitching,
Yeah.
the software is not going to run very well.
Right, and vice versa.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If your mental health is struggling,
Yeah.
it's going to be much harder to regulate your emotions effectively.
Right.
And on the flip side,
Yeah.
if you're constantly battling really difficult emotions,
Yeah.
it can really take a toll on your mental clarity and your overall well-being.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, so let's dig a little deeper into the specific differences between the two. Mindful Health Solutions breaks it down into a few key categories.
Right.
So first up is psychological differences.
Okay.
So what makes mental and emotional health distinct from a, like, psychological perspective?
So with mental health, we're looking at your cognitive functions.
Okay.
Things like logical thinking, problem solving,
Uh-huh.
how well you can process information.
Okay.
Emotional health is all about your internal experience of feelings.
Okay.
How intense are those feelings?
Yeah.
Are you able to express them in a healthy way?
Yeah. So mental health is kind of like the mechanics of the mind,
Uh-huh.
and emotional health is more about what it feels like to be inside your own head.
Right.
What about the cognitive differences?
Good question. So from a cognitive standpoint, mental health is going to impact things like your memory, your attention span,
Yeah.
your ability to organize information.
Yeah.
Emotional health is more about how you react to your thoughts and feelings.
Okay.
Do you spiral? Do you find ways to kind of reframe things in a more positive light?
So you could be, like, really sharp mentally, but still struggle with, like, emotional regulation.
Absolutely. And then finally, you have behavioral differences.
Okay.
And this is where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah.
This is where those internal struggles can really start to show up in how you act.
So how does all of this actually play out, like,
Yeah.
in real life?
Right.
What are some of the signs that mental or emotional health might be, like,
Struggling.
struggling? Yeah.
Yeah. So with mental health challenges,
Okay.
you might see changes in behavior that seem out of character.
Okay.
For example, someone who's usually really social might start isolating themselves. Or someone who's generally organized might become really forgetful,
Right.
have trouble concentrating.
So those would be signs to maybe, like, dig a little deeper and see what's going on.
Exactly. Now, with emotional health,
Okay.
the outward signs might be more about how someone expresses their emotions.
Okay.
So maybe they're quick to anger,
Yeah.
or they cry easily, or they just seem really emotionally numb.
Yeah, it's like those internal struggles are kind of bubbling up to the surface.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And this brings us to another important point that both of our sources touch on.
Oh, okay.
Triggers.
Yeah.
Understanding triggers can be a game changer when it comes to managing both mental and emotional health.
Okay, let's talk about triggers.
Okay.
I think a lot of people have heard that term, but
Yeah.
maybe they don't fully get like what it means or
Right.
how it applies to them.
Right. So Mindful Health Solutions defines mental triggers as events or situations
Okay.
that spark negative thoughts and feelings,
Okay.
which can then lead to things like anxiety or depression.
So it's like something flips a switch in your brain
Mhm.
and suddenly you're like spiraling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A good example would be public speaking
Okay.
for someone with social anxiety.
Yeah.
The thought of giving a presentation might trigger a whole cascade of anxious thoughts.
Right.
And physical symptoms like their heart might race.
They might start sweating.
Yeah.
Their mind might be filled with worries about what could go wrong. It's like a fight or flight response, but it's triggered by something that's not actually dangerous.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Now, emotional triggers are a little different.
Okay.
They're often rooted in past experiences,
Yeah.
sometimes even trauma,
Yeah.
and they can evoke these really intense emotional reactions that feel overwhelming.
So it's more like something from your past is being like reactivated in the present.
Yeah, it's like this subconscious connection.
Okay.
Like imagine someone who went through a really painful breakup.
Yeah.
Hearing a song that reminds them of their ex
Mm-hmm.
might suddenly bring back all those feelings of sadness and rejection,
Wow.
even though the relationship ended years ago.
Yeah, that's powerful stuff.
It is.
Okay, so knowing about triggers is helpful,
Right.
but like what can we actually do
Yeah.
to improve our mental and emotional well-being? We're not just like stuck with whatever we've got.
We are not. Definitely not. Both Mindful Health Solutions and Medical News Today emphasize the importance of self-care.
Okay.
And it's not just about bubble baths and face masks.
Yeah.
It's about taking proactive steps
Yeah.
to support your mental and emotional health.
What are some concrete things that people can do?
Well, exercise is a big one.
Okay.
And I'm not talking about training for a marathon.
Right.
Even just moderate exercise, like going for a brisk walk a few times a week,
Mm-hmm.
can have a huge impact.
I've actually heard that exercise can be as effective as medication for some people with like mild to moderate depression.
Absolutely.
Is there any truth to that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So when you exercise, your brain releases endorphins,
Okay.
which have mood-boosting effects.
Yeah.
It can also help reduce stress hormones like cortisol.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, the sense of accomplishment you get from exercising can actually boost your self-esteem.
So it's like a win-win all around.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But self-care goes beyond just moving your body.
Mhm.
It's also about giving your mind a break.
Yeah.
Mindfulness practices like meditation
Uh-huh.
or deep breathing exercises
Mm.
can be incredibly effective for managing stress and anxiety.
So instead of like reaching for my phone when I'm feeling overwhelmed,
Right.
I could try taking a few deep breaths.
Exactly. Even just focusing on your breath for a few minutes
Okay.
can help calm your nervous system
Yeah.
and shift your focus away from those like racing thoughts.
Yeah.
You're basically hitting the pause button on that stress response.
I like that.
Right.
What about other forms of relaxation? Like, I'm a big fan of curling up with a good book
Ah.
or watching a funny movie when I need to. Like, de-stress.
Those are great examples.
Yeah.
The key is to find activities that bring you joy
Yeah.
and help you disconnect from the pressures of daily life.
For sure.
Whether it's reading, listening to music, spending time in nature,
Mm-hmm.
pursuing a creative hobby.
Yeah.
Make time for the things that really nourish your soul.
Yeah, make those things a priority and not just something you, like,
Right.
squeeze in if there's time left over.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And let's not forget the importance of the basics.
Yeah.
Getting enough sleep,
Yeah.
eating a balanced diet,
Mhm.
staying hydrated.
Yeah.
These foundational habits are crucial
Yeah.
for both mental and emotional well-being.
They're so easy to overlook.
They are.
But I know, like, for me,
Yeah.
when I'm sleep deprived,
Yeah.
I'm just, like, way more irritable
Yeah.
and prone to emotional outburst.
Absolutely. When you're not taking care of those basic needs,
Yeah.
it's like trying to run a car on an empty tank.
Right.
You're not going to get very far.
No, you're not.
So we've got exercise, relaxation, the foundational habits.
Yeah.
But what if someone is really struggling and like self-care just isn't cutting it?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
It's important to remember that seeking professional help
Yes.
is a sign of strength, not weakness. Like sometimes we just need a little extra support.
We do.
And that's totally okay.
And that's okay.
It's like anything else in life, right? If you had a broken leg, you'd go to the doctor.
Exactly.
Mental and emotional health are just as important as physical health.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
And there are so many resources available now.
Yeah.
Talking to a therapist can help you develop coping mechanisms for dealing with stress, anxiety, and depression.
Right.
They can also just provide a really safe and supportive space to process difficult emotions and work through, maybe some past experiences.
Yeah. What about medication?
Yeah.
Is that something that's always necessary? Or does it just depend on the person and the situation?
It really varies.
Okay.
For some people, medication can be a lifesaver,
Yeah.
especially for those dealing with severe mental health conditions.
Right.
Psychiatrists can help determine if medication is appropriate.
Okay.
And they can also suggest alternative treatments like TMS or ketamine therapy.
So many options. That's encouraging.
There.
I know that there's so many different paths to healing.
Yeah.
And I like how both of our sources emphasize that emotional well-being is about so much more than just feeling happy all the time.
Absolutely. Medical News Today actually quotes the National Center for Emotional Wellness, or NCEW.
Okay.
And they define emotional well-being as an awareness, understanding, and acceptance of feelings, and an ability to manage effectively through times of change or challenge.
It's about being able to navigate the full spectrum of human emotions without getting swept away.
Exactly. And the NCEW actually offers some really practical tips for building emotional resilience.
Okay, yeah, what are some of those?
One of the most important is just becoming more aware of your feelings.
Okay.
Don't just try to ignore them or push them down.
Right.
Pay attention to what's happening inside of you.
So instead of saying I feel bad, maybe get more specific and say I'm feeling anxious or I'm feeling overwhelmed.
Yes. Labeling your emotions can help you understand them better.
Yeah.
And it can also take some of their power away.
I imagine it can also help you communicate more effectively with other people.
Absolutely.
If you can't articulate what you're feeling, it's easier for them to understand and support you.
Right.
Yeah.
And here's another tip from the NCEW that might seem counterintuitive.
Okay.
Don't judge your emotions.
Okay.
We often try to suppress negative feelings.
Uh-huh.
But all emotions are valid.
Yeah.
Allow yourself to feel them.
Okay.
Without shame or guilt.
So it's okay to be angry or sad or scared.
Right.
It's what you do with those feelings that matters.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And speaking of what you do with those feelings, the NCEW really emphasizes the importance of thinking before you act.
Okay.
When you're feeling emotionally charged, it's easy to just react impulsively. Take a moment to pause and consider how you want to respond.
Yeah.
In a way that aligns with your values.
So being mindful of your actions, even when your emotions are running high.
Exactly. And another powerful tool is choosing your thoughts carefully.
Yeah.
You have way more control over your thoughts than you might realize.
Yeah.
When you notice yourself kind of spiraling into negativity,
Right.
try to challenge those thoughts.
Yeah.
And reframe them in a more positive light.
It's easier said than done.
It is.
But it's a skill worth practicing.
Absolutely. And if you find yourself struggling to manage those difficult emotions, find healthy outlets for expressing them.
Okay.
Talk to a friend, write in a journal, listen to music, engage in physical activity, anything that helps you process what you're going through.
Yeah. Finding healthy coping mechanisms instead of turning to the things that'll just make it worse in the long run.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And finally, remember that personal growth is an ongoing journey. Keep learning, keep exploring.
Yeah.
And keep striving to be the best version of yourself.
I love that. So much good stuff in this deep dive.
Yeah, it goes.
It seems like the main takeaway here is just understanding the difference between mental and emotional health is the first step toward taking better care of ourselves.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Awesome. And remember,
yes,
both of our sources, Mindful Health Solutions and Medical News Today, have tons of great information on their websites.
Like they do.
We'll be sure to include links in the show notes.
Right.
All right. Well, before we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
I want to leave our listeners with a thought-provoking question.
Okay.
Inspired by what we talked about today.
Oh, yeah.
We've talked about mental and emotional health as separate but interconnected things.
Right.
We've explored some tools for like strengthening both.
Uh-huh.
So here's something to kind of consider as you go about your day.
Okay.
How can you use this newfound knowledge to create more balance and resilience in your own life?
That's the question.
What small changes can you make today that will kind of ripple out and have a positive impact on your overall well-being?
It's all about taking that first step. And remember, even small changes can make a really big difference over time.
Absolutely. So keep exploring, keep learning, and keep prioritizing your well-being.
Yes.
You deserve to thrive both mentally and emotionally.
You do.
Until next time, stay curious and keep diving deep.